your man Brett from the Skateboarding Show here with another think piece, and today I'm starting the part one of a three-part series where we're going to look at whether skateboarding is a sport or an art. And it's going to go like this. Part one, I'm going to define what sport is. Part two, I'm going to define what art is. And then in part three, we'll see where skateboarding fits within those two definitions. And hopefully, therefore, find out whether or not skateboarding is a sport or an art. And I know that the answer is, "Here, mate, it don't matter, just go out and have fun skateboarding." If that's your answer, this may not be the channel or the videos for you. So feel free to swipe on to something else that will tell you what to think somewhere else. If you're interested in contemplating whether or not skateboarding is a sport or an art, then stay tuned, because I might present you some ideas you haven't thought of. I might not. I don't know. I don't presume to have the answers. I'm just presenting some ideas and going forward from there. So, with that in mind, part one, let's define sport. So, sport has clearly defined boundaries. Sport also has clearly defined objectives. And then when you mix those two things together, clearly defined boundaries, then it's very easy to sort of define the way that you achieve those objectives. Now, so for example, you either score the most goals or you don't, right? You either scored the most points in the game of tennis or you haven't, right? There's no sort of grey area. There's no need for interpretation. There's no need for an opinion. There might be a need for an official to state clearly who has done what and to officiate, but there's no need for an opinion. Now, all of that works towards the defining characteristic of sport for me personally, although I'm saying that as a caveat. I actually think this is my thinking of something that I believe to be an objective truth, and there might be some pushback against this, and that's fair enough, and that's okay. And if it's intellectually constructed, and if you've got some dialectics to bring to this, some searching for the truth through logical reasoning discussion, then I'm interested in hearing. But my thinking on this objective truth about what really defines sport is that it has competition as its highest overarching motivation. The thing that covers any other definition that you might have of sport, right? Whether you define it as having boundaries or clear objectives, or it must involve movement or other objects or equipment, which is questionable, and we'll come back to running. You don't need specific equipment for running. The overarching, the absolutely defining element of sport is competition. The sole reason for a game of football to exist is to see who wins. The sole reason for a game of tennis to exist is to see who wins. Someone will say, I'm not gonna name every sport. Please extrapolate that idea. Sport is defined by having a winner and a loser, a competition, or a series of places, or a winner and a series of not winners. Okay, that defines sport. Now, it might be, I'm just changing, I'm just turning over the page. I, again, actually wrote some notes for a change. It might be that there is the art of ball control, but you're learning that art of ball control to apply it to a game of football. Very few people, although some people do, I acknowledge this, and it doesn't change the definition. They're taking an element of a sport. Some people might learn keepy-uppies just for the point of doing keepy-uppies. Most people, but they're still taking it from the game of football, which exists to find out who wins and who doesn't win. One would normally, and I do acknowledge that it doesn't always happen, like I've just said, one would normally learn the art of ball control, to apply it to a game of football. One might learn the art of the perfect stride to apply it to a running race, to find out who can get from point A to point B first. All right? So yes, there are techniques, there is the art of the perfect technique within sport, but that is applied to the competitional environment that sport comes from. Okay. Sport doesn't always necessarily need to be physical or massively physical or exert a lot of physical energy. Snooker, darts, and at its ultimate extreme, chess. Is chess a sport? There's a question. According to my definition, yes it is. Yes, you play a game of chess to find out who wins. There is strategy, there is logic, there's an art to controlling the board. But all of that is used and applied to the game of chess to find out who wins and who doesn't. Now, please be patient. There will be a part 2, there will be a part 3. Like I say, if you have some good logical reasoning input to make into this conversation, would love to hear it. If your response is, what are you going on about, mate? Just go out and skate and have fun. Like I say, this may not be the channel for you. Absolutely, skateboarding is fun, but skateboarding has always invited me to think for myself and to have my own opinion. Every time you go out on your skateboard, you're invited to think for yourself because you're invited to do whatever you want on your skateboard. So, the next part 2, I'll look at defining art, which could get a little bit more interesting and maybe not as quick and as simple to do. And then part 3, we'll see if we can take skateboarding and see where it fits into one of those 2 definitions, and therefore hopefully let us know whether skateboarding is an art or a sport. Thank you very much for joining me. And yeah, part 2 will be out soon. So this has been part 1 of the 3-part series of Is Skateboarding Sport or Art? And in this, hopefully, I have done, I'm aware that I've thought about this stuff a lot, and I might have jumped around. And if I've jumped around too much, and if I need to explain any more of these bits, I will happily do so. The overarching, overriding, ultimate definition of sport is competition. Sport exists to manifest competition above and beyond everything else that you can say about sport. If it doesn't have competition as its ultimate highest motivation, then perhaps it's not a sport. By its very nature, though, by the very thing that makes it that thing, which we'll come back to probably in part 3. So I might be giving a little bit of the game away there. But, competition exists in skateboarding. So we're still on the fence yet. That still hasn't defined whether or not skateboarding is a sport or not. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you all soon. Cheers. Bye-bye. Oh, and don't forget, this is also an audio podcast. So you don't have to look at my ugly mug while listening to this. You can have this on in the car while you're driving. You could do whatever you want. You check out Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's on all that sort of business. So yeah, feel free to check that out as well. All right. Thank you very much. See you later. Bye.